too regularly, however, the generals did order their troops over the top into murderous machine gun fire. The death toll was often appallingly high. At the Battle of the Somme, for example, launched on July 1st, 1916, nearly 20,000 British soldiers were killed on the first morning, making it the bloodiest day in British military history. 3 weeks later, in a diversionary attack to try to draw German troops away from the Battle of the Somme, Allied soldiers were again sent over the top at Fromelles, 50 miles to the north. This time, it would be the Australian military's bloodiest day in history.
Hey, Graeme.
Hey, g'day, Zay. How you doing, mate?
Hey, you're an Aussie.
Yeah,
That's
Aussie,
appropriate.
Aussie as they come, yeah.
I meet up with Graeme Archer from Spirit of Remembrance Tours for a look around the Fromelles battlefield.
The Australians, this was their first ever action on the Western Front in World War I, and it was an absolute and utter disaster. This was one of the most heavily fortified German positions along the whole of the Western Front.
Look how thick it is.
Yeah, well, you're talking about a fortification that was 8 to 8 feet thick. The Aussie gunners shelled for around about 7 hours, 200,000 rounds all around here, but
Didn't even put a dent
didn't
in it,
even
did it?
dent them.
Better to be on the defense on this war.
Absolutely. I'll take you at the top and have a look. So if you look out over here, this is a field of fire. Across this, the Australians had to advance. There's an absolute swathe of machine gun fire. The Australians keep coming and coming and coming, and they're cut down as they come. 5,500 dead and dying. This field is covered in bodies, and for what? Not 1 yard was taken. This battle achieved nothing. It's just a footnote in history, but to Australians, this is hallowed ground.
A century ago, most of the Australian dead recovered from the battlefield were buried here in this cemetery, but not all of them. Just recently, a mile or so away, a mass grave of around 250 unidentified Australian soldiers was discovered in this field next to Pheasant Wood, where they had been buried by the Germans after the battle. In 2010, they were reburied at the brand new Pheasant Wood Cemetery, the first Commonwealth war grave cemetery to be created since the Second World War.
It's beautiful.
It's gorgeous, isn't it?
Yeah.
And all of the soldiers from the mass grave are buried here, including over 100 now that have been identified.
So how do they identify these?
Predominantly through DNA testing, through the relatives, through the DNA samples that they put in, and also through personal artefacts that they found on the bodies. So amazing detective job.
Must
amazing
be
work.
great for the families to finally get to...
Finally get closure. It's 3 generations on.
The huge death toll in 1916 at battles like Fromelles, the Somme, and Verdun led the Allies to redouble their efforts to invent a new weapon that could break through the formidable German frontline defense.